So we're like, okay, we called a timeout. We're like, hey, look, we need a break. We're going to call you back. Is that okay? Yeah, sure. That's fine. Kid hangs up. So we get together and we're like, I don't know what to do. We're kind of at a loss. And somebody said, he's a kid. Let's scare him. So we had the tactical team break a window and throw in a flashbang device, which all it does is it kind of goes off and it creates a loud sound and a bright light. And we're like, yeah, let's scare the kids, see what happens. I mean, we tried everything else. Let's see if this will work. So we did. We had tactical throw in a flashbang. Boom. Within 10 minutes, he was out. So, sometimes, yeah, I want to say this stuff works, and it works. It works 95% of the time. But sometimes it just flat out doesn't work. But I think the best salespeople are the best listeners, not necessarily the best talkers. Would you agree?
100%. I think that a salesperson should really only speak maybe 30% of the time. Like it's all about the questions that you ask, but more importantly, the intention of the question that you're asking, because you want to have the outcome. Like, you don't want to ask just mindless questions, because how is that going to serve you? How is that going to serve them? Because in a sales call, it's like, when you hop on with me, Terry, it's like, I don't even know if I can help you yet. And that's the first thing I got to figure out is like, what's the problem? All right, how long have you had that problem for? Has that problem had any impact or effect on you? If so, like, what does that look like? And then I want to figure out, like, what are some things that you've tried in the past to try to fix that problem, Terry? But why didn't it work for you? Because I want to know why it didn't work for them. Is it because of them? Was it they had a bad mindset at the time? They couldn't be consistent, or they're too scared, like fear of commitment, fear of failure. Like, these are pre-handling objections, mindset objections. Think about objections. Was it money, resources? Can I pre-handle money objection? Was it spouse, partner? I could pre-handle those objections. Or maybe was it nothing to do with them? Maybe they just got scammed. Was it a bad product or service? And that's a different objection in and of itself that I have to handle. So it's just figuring out, like, what's the problem and how can I fix it? What have you tried in the past? And then, like, yes, you're building rapport through the questions that you ask, if you ask good questions, but more importantly, when you're listening close to the solutions that they want, I'm going to build confidence behind that thing that they believe will get them the result that they want. Because when I can build that confidence in the thing, yes, they're going to feel more confident that that will help them solve XYZ after all this time. And that's what I'm going to present to them as a solution. And when I do so in the right way, I become the obvious solution. And when I'm in my presentation, I want to give them the feeling of, oh my God, this is what I need to solve XYZ. So that's kind of like what my sales process looks like in a nutshell, but it always goes back to the same conversation, full circle. I can't assume, number one, I have to always clarify. Even if I have to pump the brakes, take a step back, spend a little bit more time in a certain place to see if there's anything else to, like, any more to that truth, or figure out what the real problem is, like, I got to do that. And then I got to figure out if I can obviously help the person, and then just go from there. But well, what are your thoughts on that? Is there
no, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of it, when I said, when we start negotiating, the person's, they're ranting and raving, yelling and screaming and like that. And there's a tendency, to sort of mimic the person. I mean, I'm sure you've seen people that, you're across the table and talking to somebody folds their arms. Well, then you fold your arms, or they cross their leg and you cross their leg. Well, if you do that, and they don't realize you're doing that, that creates that trust, that creates that familiarity as well. So if somebody's ranting and raving and yelling and screaming, that's why we would kind of do the opposite and use that sort of late night DJ voice. Well, Enrique, seems like you're really upset now with your mom. You're damn right I'm upset. I'm just, and they go off a million miles an hour. And you try to, you're trying to bring them down off of that emotional high. And eventually you get to a point. And a lot of times they just wear themselves out. They're yelling and screaming, ranting and raving. Maybe they're drunk, maybe they're high, all that over hours. You just keep them talking. You keep mirroring them, you keep labeling, you just keep
Mhm.
going on. And eventually they're just exhausted. I had one guy who's just, Terry, I just want to come out. I'm tired. Yeah, that's a great idea. I want you to come out, but I want you to come out safely. So let's do, because a lot of times in SWAT, and people didn't realize this, you've barricaded yourself in a room. We would tie the door off so that you couldn't just open the door and come out, because we might not be ready to deal with you. So we would actually tie the door off and be like, no, if you decided you wanted to come out, no, you're gonna do it the way we want you to do it. We're gonna do it safely so that none of us get hurt and you don't get hurt as well. So hey, when you come out, and I would tell them, here's exactly what you're going to do. Here's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to come out, your hands are going to be up. People are going to tell you what to do. Just do what they tell you to do. If they tell you to get out on your knees, get out on your knees. If they tell you to lay flat on your stomach, lay flat on your stomach. And we'd go through this whole scenario so nobody got hurt coming out. But then I would always end it with, and you know what? When we've got you secured and you're safe, I'm going to come down to the scene and we're going to talk face to face. We're going to talk like men. Yeah, I'd really like that, Terry. Because I've developed that rapport. I've developed that trust with them.
Did you meet them?
Yeah.
Every time?
Most of the time. Yeah, I would go down to the scene and we would talk. I mean, I had one guy, and this was a totally atypical, never went this way. But this guy had barricaded himself in his house with his wife, and he was drunk. I got to the scene. I was the first officer on the scene, or first SWAT person on the scene. And I talked to the uniformed officer, what's the deal? It's like, he's drunk, barricaded himself in his house with his wife. Do you have him on the phone? Yes, let me talk to him. So I start talking to him. And like I said, I told you, again, there are absolutes, but then you kind of throw the book out the window sometimes. And this was throw the book out the window. I talked to him for about 10 minutes. And I just had this feeling. And I said to him, what would it take for you to come out? Again, you never asked that. In the first couple hours, you never asked that. There was this long pause. He said, give me a beer. I said, if I gave you a beer, do I have your word you would come out? He said, do I have your word I could drink it? I said, you have my word, you can drink it. So I gave $5 to one of the officers. I said, get out of the store, buy a beer. Tactical team put it on the front porch. I called him back. I said, your beer's on the front porch, but you don't get it until your wife comes out. You put the gun down and you come out. He said, do I still have your word I can drink it? I said, absolutely, you have my word, you can drink it. All of a sudden, the front door flies open. His wife comes out with her hands up. He comes out with his hands up. We handcuff him, let him drink his beer, and off to jail he goes.
See that, ladies? See how simple us men are. Just give us some beer. It would have been.
Give me a beer. We'll end this.
You should probably cut the alcohol. He's like deficit on carbs and.
But see, that was the other thing. We never gave somebody anything without getting something. So somebody